Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Helps us out a ton. And don't forget to put your baseball plays in the comment section below. Now, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at Pickdawgz.com. And don't forget to check out the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We go over all the games in Week 3 of the NFL season, so you can check that out. It's at the Pickdawgz YouTube channel, and I'll put a link in the comment section below. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Saturday, September 24th. First up, we see a big-time rivalry between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. Nick Pivetta and Domingo Germán are the projected starters for this one. Now, Nick Pivetta has faced the Yankees a few times this season. Really hasn't had a lot of success at all in those games. You look through his 18 2/3 innings, he's given up 20 earned runs, 8 home runs, 10 walks. He does have 18 strikeouts, but a .325 opponent's batting average and a 9.64 ERA against the Yankees this season. So automatically, I do like the Yankees offense, especially at Yankee Stadium. But, Domingo Germán is not a pitcher that I'm looking to back very often right now. I do think there's some regression concerns in his game, and I also see that the Red Sox are hitting righties pretty well in the last month. They're ranked 4th in the league in team OPS against righties at .768, just behind these New York Yankees. So I think we're going to see some scoring in this game. I think we're going to see some offense from both teams. Give me the over in this Red Sox-Yankees afternoon contest. Next up, we see another afternoon game between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. Kyle Wright and Bailey Falter are the starters. You look at Kyle Wright, he's kind of been up and down this season, but overall, pretty solid, 19-5 with a 3.18 ERA. Now, his ERA on the road a little bit higher at 3.66, but I do like the fact that he's been able to miss some more bats as of late, and he's also got a really good ground ball percentage in the month of September. To me, he's a ground ball specialist. He needs to get those ground ball outs to really have success on the mound, and we've seen him at times this season have issues with the long ball. He gave up 4 home runs in one game against the New York Mets back on August 4th, and had some issues with the home run ball, giving up at least 1 in 5 straight games at that time, but his last 3 games, he has a 29-15 ground ball to fly ball ratio, exactly what I want to see from him. And I do think he pitches well in this game. And I also like the Braves' bats against Bailey Falter here, who was really missing a lot of bats, I would say, in the month of August and in July a little bit as well. But so far in September, only 10 strikeouts through 16 innings of work. Not what you want to see. And the home run ball has hurt him at times this season as well against a really good Atlanta Braves offense, against lefties especially. I don't love this particular matchup for Falter. So give me the Atlanta Braves here on the money line. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Jacob deGrom and Ken Waldichuk on the mound for this game. Pretty big pitching mismatch, and because of that, we see a mismatch with this money line price. The Mets are right now minus 365. The Oakland A's plus 300 on the money line. As much as I'd love to take the plus money with the dog, or maybe even take a shot with them on the run line, which you'll still be getting plus money with, I just can't get there. This is just too much of a mismatch on the mound. Jacob deGrom, a 2.32 ERA. Now, his last 2 starts haven't been the greatest. He's given up 3 earned runs in each of his last 2, but he still struck out 23 batters in about 11 innings of work in those 2 games. So still missing a lot of bats, not really walking many guys. I think he'll have a good start here. And on the other side, Ken Waldichuk, a left-handed pitcher. At the beginning of the season, maybe I'd say the A's could compete here because of the lefty on the mound, but the Mets are actually they're hitting lefties pretty well in the last 30 days. Their isolated power numbers and their team OPS numbers are above the league's best against those lefties, and Waldichuk is regressing quite a bit after his strong start to the major leagues. His last start, 2 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs against the Astros. The previous start to that one, 5 more earned runs against the Rangers. Doesn't pitch too deep into these games, and the Oakland A's bullpen not very good this season. So give me the New York Mets laying the 1.5 runs. I'd think about laying 2.5 runs in this one as well. Next up, we see an AL East contest between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays. Alek Manoah and Drew Rasmussen are the starters, so pretty good pitching matchup we see yet again here. Now, Drew Rasmussen's last 2 starts haven't been the greatest. He's given up 8 earned runs through 10 innings of work, at least 1 home run in each of those 2 games, and one of those starts was against these Toronto Blue Jays. That was back on September 14th. He went 4 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, and a homer, so I do like the Blue Jays matchup here against them yet again. The Blue Jays numbers haven't been too bad against righties in the last month So I do think their offense shows up here. Alek Manoah on the other side having a good season, just like Rasmussen on the mound. 2.4 ERA for Manoah. Even better numbers away from home with an 8-3 record and a 2.23 road ERA. The strikeout numbers have kind of been here and there for Manoah. Still on the season, 168 Ks in 183 innings. So pretty much a good amount below the 9 strikeouts per 9 rating I like to see from an ace, but still pitching really well for the Blue Jays. I think he's good enough here against Tampa Bay. I'd lean towards the over, but I like the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line, especially at the price that we're getting them at. In our next game, we see an NL East matchup between the Washington Nationals and the Miami Marlins. Now, there's no official lineup for this game right now. Right now, I'm seeing Sandy Alcantara and Eric Fedde as the projected starters. This could certainly change, and like I've mentioned a few times, as we near the end of the regular season, we got about less than 2 weeks now until the regular season's over. We're going to see some pitchers move up, move down in the rotation, maybe even scratched altogether. We've seen that a few times already this week, so be prepared to see a pitching change in this one. But, Sandy Alcantara coming off a complete game win against the Nationals last start, September 18th. He went 9 innings, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts in that 3-1 Marlins win. And I think he pitches well here. He's been pitching really well at Lone Depot Park this season, a 1.67 home ERA. So much better numbers at home than on the road, and that complete game was on the road. So I think he has another really good start in this one. I think Eric Fedde on the other side is somebody I'd like to fade right now. His last start was against these Marlins, and he didn't pitch too. The Nationals got the win in that game, but he didn't pitch very well in that one. 4 innings, 3 earned runs, 7 base hits allowed, a home run as well. So give me the Miami Marlins on the money line, and I'll sprinkle a little bit on the run line as well. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to see Wade Miley and Johan Oviedo on the mound for this one. Neither team really playing for too much at the end of the season here. Both are right near the bottom of the NL standings. Both teams are giving some younger guys a chance to get some everyday work at the major league level, get some development time, which you like to see that, but neither team I'm looking to actively back right now. But when they're playing against each other, we got to pick one side. So I'm leaning towards the Cubs here. I think Wade Miley is the slightly better option on the mound, and I also trust the Cubs bats a little bit more also. Wade Miley's last start was probably his worst of the season so far against the Miami Marlins. He gave up 7 total runs, but only 3 of those were earned. And overall, he's been pretty good this season in his limited work at the major leagues. And the Pirates this season against lefties have just struck out so many times. And in the last 30 days, that's definitely the case with their 30.2% team strikeout rate, which is the highest in baseball during that stretch. So I don't love this matchup for the Pirates bats. And Johan Oviedo, he's got a sub-4 ERA. He hasn't been too bad in the opener role for the Pirates this year, but he is coming off a start where he gave up 4 walks, and we've seen him give up at least 4 in 2 of his last 3 starts, only going 4 or 5 innings in each of those games. So the control issues are there. He's given up a good amount of earned runs in his last few outings, and I do think the Cubs have the slightly better lineup. So I'm going to take a lean here with the Chicago Cubs on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Corbin Burnes and Graham Ashcraft are the projected starters. Corbin Burnes a minus 190 favorite here with the Brewers, despite not really being in the best of form lately. He's given up at least 1 home run in 4 of his last 5 games. Gave up 5 earned runs his last start against the New York Mets, and now his ERA on the season above 3 when it was below 3 for most of the year. So, not in the best of form, but I still think he's the far better pitcher. I expect a bounce back start here, and I do think the Brewers are going to win this game on the run line. Graham Ashcraft hasn't pitched at the major league level in over a month. He was placed on the 15-day IL. At the beginning of his first few games of the major leagues, I actually liked what I saw. He kept the ball on the ground pretty well, but in his last 5 games, he faced some weak lineups, the Marlins twice, the Cubs, the Pirates. He was starting to struggle with his control. The home run ball was starting to hurt him a little bit, giving up at least 1 home run in 3 of his last 5 games, and the base hits were also starting to pile up for him. So I don't love him in this spot, especially making his return after that injury, and I don't expect him to go too deep into this game, so I don't want to see this Reds bullpen for too long, but we're probably going to have to. So I'm going to take the Milwaukee Brewers laying the 1.5 runs on the road. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Texas Rangers. Cal Quantrill and Glenn Otto are the starters. This is a tough series here for the Guardians, who coming off that emotional sweep over the White Sox, and now they're playing in their 15th, 16th, and 17th straight days with a doubleheader on one of those days. So they played a lot of baseball lately, and it looks like they're going to win the AL Central. So props to them. They got through the gauntlet, and they have a pretty big lead now in the AL Central. But in this particular game, I'm going to just take the over. I do think the Guardians bats will still show up here against Machado, a pitcher that I am looking to fade quite a bit. His last start giving up 4 earned and 2 home runs and only a 3 1/3 innings pitched against the Rays. And I do think he struggles here against the Guardians lineup that's been pretty good against righties this year. But on the other side, Cal Quantrill, he's given up at least 1 home run in 3 of his last 4, given up at least 8 base hits in each of his last 3. And, I just don't love his style of game. Overall, he's got a 3.56 ERA, and he's been a game winner for the Guardians, a 13-5 record. So they definitely like to score for him, but I just don't love this matchup for him against the Rangers, who's offensively actually haven't been too bad lately. So give me the over in this Guardians-Rangers ballgame. In our next game, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Framber Valdez and Tyler Wells are the projected starters. Framber Valdez, we originally thought was going to pitch on Friday. He's got 25 consecutive quality starts right now. He's been fantastic this season, one of the better lefties on the bump in the entire league. And on the road, even better numbers, a 2.05 ERA. When you look at the Baltimore Orioles, they are struggling against lefties, one of the higher strikeout rates, one of the lower team OPS and isolated power numbers. So I don't love this matchup for the Orioles offensively. And Tyler Wells is not in the best of form. He returned from his injury, really wasn't pitching too well, gave up 5 earned runs his last start against the Detroit Tigers in 3 innings of work, 3 walks allowed in that one also. That's against one of the weaker lineups in baseball. Now you face off with the Houston Astros, who, have been inconsistent against righties this season, but I still think they're a much better lineup overall than the Detroit Tigers are, and I do think they'll be able to get to Tyler Wells yet again. So give me the Houston Astros on the run line in this one. In our next game, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Minnesota Twins. We're going to see Reed Detmers and Joe Ryan as the projected starters for now. No official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change. Now, it's been a very disappointing week or so, a week and a half, you could say, for the Minnesota Twins. It does look like they may have given up a little bit, and it is expected because this was a team that had a lot of expectations going into the year, and they also were playing pretty good baseball for most of the season. They had a decent chance of making the playoffs at certain points of the year, but they've struggled against the Guardians and the division itself. They just got swept by the Royals on the road, and overall, it will be still a very disappointing year for the Twins, but I don't think they're going to be more disappointing than the Angels have been this season, as they had even bigger expectations. They had a fantastic start to the season, and then they just completely dropped off. So 2 disappointing teams going at it, but I do like the way that the Angels are playing down the stretch just a little bit more than the Twins are right now, and I do think with the Twins not really hitting lefties very well in the last month, I think Reed Detmers has the advantage there. Joe Ryan's much better at target field than he is on the road, but the Angels' bats have been pretty good, and I do think that they'll score enough runs to keep this game close. We can expect that the Twins are going to be pretty good favorites here because Joe Ryan's on the bump and because they're playing at home. So I'm just going to take the Angels plus the 1.5 runs. We'll see what the exact money line price is. Maybe just take a shot with the Angels on the money line if the money line price is a little bit closer than what we think. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Chicago White Sox. Davis Martin and Drew Hutchison are your starters. Now, Davis Martin's not necessarily my favorite starting pitcher to back, as he only has 35 strikeouts and 50 innings this season, but I will say he has been in pretty good form lately. His ERA now below 4 on the season. His last 2 starts, 11 innings combined against the Tigers and the Twins, only giving up 1 earned run, so a really good start against these Detroit Tigers. He went 6 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, no homers in that one, and I do think that he will pitch pretty well in this game yet again, and I like the White Sox bats to back him up against Drew Hutchison, who's really struggling and starting to regress quite a bit now. His last start giving up 6 earned runs, 7 base hits, and a home run against the Chicago White Sox, so I don't like the form he's in right now, giving up a lot of sharp contact, at least 1 home run in each of his last 5 games. That's not going to get it done. Give me the Chicago White Sox, even though they don't have a ton to play for right now, and they're probably pretty discouraged. That would be the only reason why I wouldn't love Chicago, is because, they just got swept by the Guardians, and they're pretty much not going to make the playoffs this season. Disappointing year overall, but I still think that they take out a little bit of frustration on the Tigers in this one. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Kansas City Royals. Logan Gilbert and Chris Bubich are the starters. You look at the Seattle Mariners against lefties offensively, they're actually not too bad of numbers, especially the isolated power numbers are in the top 15. Team OPS a little bit far behind, but when you look at the BABIP numbers, the batting average for balls put into play, it's at 216 right now. The league average is about 300, so to see it at 216, unsustainably low, I do think we're going to see some positive regression for the Mariners bats against lefties as the season continues, and for that reason, against the lefties, lefty that I do like to fade quite a bit in Chris Bubich. I think it's a good spot here for the Mariners to grab a win and a run line cover with Logan Gilbert in pretty good form for the Mariners. Last start, 6 innings, 1 earned, 11 strikeouts. Previous start, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. So getting some missed bats, not giving up a ton of earned runs. And the big thing for me with Gilbert, he was giving up a good amount of home runs at one point. In his last 5 starts, no home runs allowed. That's what I want to see from Logan Gilbert. And he's faced some tough lineups, the Guardians, the White Sox, the Padres. So give me the Seattle Mariners on the run line. In our next game, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Colorado Rockies. Yu Darvish and Chad Cole are the starters. I think there's some value here with the home dog. I'm going to put some on the run line and a little bit on the money line as well with Colorado. As you look at Yu Darvish in his career, an ERA above 5 at Coors Field. He's faced the Rockies once this season. It was at Petco Park, so the Rockies on the road, we know, don't do much against, especially righties, away from home offensively. But in that game, the Rockies scored 3 earned runs. They got 2 home runs on Darvish, so they were able to compete on the road. Now they're getting to face Darvish at home, where Darvish has not really had a lot of success at Coors in his career. You look at Chad Cole this season, certainly not pitching very well, that's for sure. 5.48 ERA, but his numbers at home are just a little bit better. I like the fact that he's been actually missing some bats lately. 6 strikeouts in his last start, 5 strikeouts in each of his last 2, 7 strikeouts before that one against the Atlanta Braves of all teams. So he actually hasn't been in that bad of form. And his last start, even though he gave up those 5 earned runs, it was actually good enough to grab a win here for Colorado in that game against the Giants. The bullpen blew that one in the end, but the Rockies had a nice lead. Cole gave him a chance to win it, and I think he's going to give him a chance to win it in this one as well. Give me the Colorado Rockies plus the 1.5 runs as the home dog. Next up, we see Alex Cobb and the San Francisco Giants taking on Merrill Kelly and the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see the Diamondbacks as pretty big favorites in this game, and I understand why. They've had success against the Giants this season. Merrill Kelly has the better numbers on the mound, especially when you look at Cobb's road ERA at 5.16. But I still think Cobb is a good enough starter to keep his team in this game, and I think the Giants are going to be competitive in this one. When you look at Merrill Kelly's last few starts, he's given up 7 home runs in his last 3 games combined. Plenty of earned runs in those games also. I know he's missing a good amount of bats, but his control's kind of been all over the place. And I do think if there was a spot for the Giants to get to Kelly, this would be the one when he's not in the best of form. So I'm going to take a shot here with the Giants as the road dog. Not my favorite game on the board, but give me the plus 1.5 runs with San Francisco. And in our final game of the night, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're going to see 2 lefties on the mound for this one, Clayton Kershaw and Jordan Montgomery. Not my favorite game on the board, that is for sure. Should be a fun one to watch, but as far as value, I don't see much. I'm going to lean towards the Dodgers on the run line. And the Cardinals against lefties this season have been very good. Now, their BABIP in the last month, I mentioned how the Mariners' BABIP was at 216. The Cardinals even lower at 201. So we could expect some positive regression for the Cardinals' bats against lefties as the season continues, which is pretty deadly as they've already got pretty good numbers against lefties to begin with. However, Jordan Montgomery, I'm not in love with what I'm seeing with him as of late. His last start got hit pretty hard against the Cincinnati Reds of all teams, giving up those 3 earned runs and a home run. Even though he had 9 strikeouts, it just wasn't his best outing, and he's now had back-to-back rough starts against 2 teams that don't really hit lefties well in the Brewers and Reds. Those were at Busch Stadium of all stadiums as well, a pitcher-friendly ballpark. So the Dodgers have been crushing lefties this season. I do think they have the better lineup, the better bullpen, and the better starter. So I'm going to take the Los Angeles Dodgers in a lean here on the run line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday, September 24th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave that like and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball plays in the comments section below. You can find my best bets at Pick Dawgz Premium and check out the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. I'll put a link to that in the comments section below. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.